Hello, how's everybody doing today? I am online today because I feel moved to want to talk about something that I think we can all relate to, which is like the one thing that we rarely use these guys for. And to talk about this, I brought on a dear friend of mine, Jen Morris. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
Jen is in Denver. She used to live in New York City, and she is a really good friend of mine. I've known her for, gosh, maybe somewhere around 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. And we're both from theater backgrounds, and we both lived in New York City and doing all that stuff. Now we continue to be bonded over many things, including parenting and being our own, business, running our own businesses, that kind of thing, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, so let's talk about this and the phone and the one thing that we rarely use phones for. Any guesses?
I know.
You know, making phone calls, right? Who uses a phone to make a phone call anymore? They're so smart. They have all these other things going on. I was laughing because yesterday I took my kids to the Bronx Zoo, and halfway through the day, my battery ran out. Luckily, I had brought an extra battery to charge up the phone. But why was I so freaked out? It's because it's also my camera. Right. And so, it's like not because I was making phone calls, but because I couldn't take any more pictures of my kids. But on a more serious note, I want to kind of talk to Jen about something that really has had a huge impact on my life, which all began when she decided to reach out to me in, I guess it was middle of February. And my phone rang. I saw her name. She's in my contacts. And I decided to answer the phone. And we had a really great conversation. So let's set this up a little bit more, Jen. I want to hear you talk a little bit about that time and maybe what you expected, or maybe you didn't have expectations. I don't know. But can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I was making some changes in my life and career, and kind of the way David and I became connected was through another kind of chapter in our lives. And I wanted to tell him what was going on because I personally don't like finding out about things secondhand. Good, bad, indifferent things. I like hearing it from people when they're going through it. And I am a big believer in the power of voice. I am a very verbal person. As my husband will attest to. And so if I can share news, on the phone, like the way it's meant to be, well, not the way it's meant to be used, but the way it was designed to be used. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we didn't have AIM and we didn't have texting and stuff like that. So I think because of that, kind of hold dear to actually connecting with people, verbally on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I had something going on, and I didn't want him to hear through rumor mill that I was making some changes. So I thought, what the hell? David's awesome. I'm going to call him. And that was really it. It was just to tell him so that he didn't hear in another way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I called, and how are you and what's going on? And I was actually just making some changes, and I'm going to be, working with a company that focuses on mental wellness. It's been something professionally that's been really interesting for me. I have a nutrition background of over a decade, and he was kind of quiet, and he was, I remember I was standing in my kitchen, doing dishes. I think I was kind of multitasking. I have a little and a toddler at home, so I'm always kind of multitasking, which is why I also like the phone, because you can't text and wash dishes, right?
Right.
So I find it to actually be a better use of my time, even if I'm leaving a voicemail. And so, you were kind of quiet, and I was kind of like, okay, say something. And I remember you said, tell me more, because I don't think you know this, but I have been really badly depressed for a long time. And I was pretty shocked. I knew that because I had seen you the summer before, I guess.
Yeah, the summer before. Mm-hmm. About 6 months earlier.
And I knew, what had gone on, with losing your father. And we had talked, during that time and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so I knew a lot of what was going on in your life, but I also, I didn't know that it was to the point that it was as debilitating as it was for you, because, David is somebody who is, as people watching this who are friends of his know, he's a very talented actor, singer, dancer. And he's got 2 awesome kids who I've really had the joy to kind of see grow up. And I'm good friends with your husband, Eric as well. And so I felt like I knew you guys fairly well. We weren't people who saw each other and hung out that frequently just because of scheduling and lives. And then I moved across the country. But, I think that I would always see that you were working on some sort of really cool project, like associate choreographing to like a Tony Award winner. And like me as an actor who never got to, the Broadway stage was always just like, man, like he works so hard and he's earned it. But like, damn, I would love to have that kind of, And so it's interesting that I think we, especially with social media, we put people on, on these kind of pedestals, and we assume that like everything must be good because if you're on Broadway, life must be good. But that's just not the reality of the situation. And so, I was really surprised, but I was really grateful you were telling me. I didn't know at the time that I was kind of like one of the first people you told. So that was interesting.
Yeah. No, you said so many things that rang true for me even just then. And no, but it's good. No, because, you had no idea calling me that there was really anything outside of good, and light going on in my life. I mean, how would you know? I think one of the things that social media is challenging, one of the ways it's challenging is that we can perpetuate images of ourselves on social media that really have nothing to do with what's authentically going on. And I was definitely in that spot, you know what I mean? Like I think that, okay, so yes, I was really depressed. I mean, there's that part of my story. I've spoken about it on Facebook before. Major stress over a long period of time resulted in some massive anxiety and a dark depression, a deep depression that I had found myself in. The things that I'd used in the past weren't working. They weren't helping. I was having bad stomach aches or really bad headaches. 2 or 3 times a week, if not more, that would make me have to lay down in the middle of the day. All this stuff that was going on in the privacy of my own home that, of course, I wasn't telling anyone about, certainly not on social media. But I think then there was shame around that for me too. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? What am I going to do? And so, my world just got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But then on social media, I just kind of kept this sort of image going or persona going. And of course, nobody had any idea what was really going on. I'm so glad that I picked up the phone that day. And I think, if anyone watching this is struggling and they see a familiar name flash on their phone, be brave, pick up the phone, answer it, because I could have chosen not to answer that call. I was in such a bad spot that probably was as likely as picking up the phone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I adore you and you're really important to me and I respect you and I'm so grateful for our relationship. Sometimes somebody's just not in the spot where they feel like they can either fake it and pick up the phone and fake it.
Sure.
Or they can, pick up the phone and share. For whatever reason, I picked up the phone that day. I'm so glad that I did, because when you were reaching out just to share with me what was going on in your life, for some reason that felt like it gave me the permission to share with you what was going on in my life. And now I know you and I know you care and you come from the heart and you're a good listener. And I felt like you'd be a sympathetic ear. But I think the fact that you were reaching out to really check up, to say hi, to really connect, you had a little bit of news that you wanted to share with me and some changes you were making in your life. I think all of that created an environment in which I felt safe to actually tell somebody something that was going on with me that I hadn't told anyone outside of my 4 walls of my home. Nobody knew, I think other than my journal, you were probably the first person to actually, you were the first person to hear me express really and say out loud the truth of what had been going on for me. So, and it's,
it's interesting that, sorry, I just had a thought that,
please.
I don't want to leave my mind. since I've started working in this, and doing what I'm calling the mental wellness movement, that's kind of what I've branded it for me. But working with Amari, company that's focusing on that. When I tell people and they say, what do you do? And I say, well, I work with a mental wellness company. It's amazing the relief people feel when sometimes even strangers will just be like, oh my gosh, that sounds really interesting, because I have really bad anxiety. I have really, I've had a really hard time getting out of bed lately. I've got crazy stomach stuff going on. Can it help with that? I have a lot of trouble concentrating or remembering things. It's stuff that's really scary when you're in it. And I've been in it. I have written and talked about my brand about how I was in a really tough time for a long time, and I went to therapy, and that was wonderful, and I'm a huge advocate for that. And but I was drinking too much at the time. It was what I did to kind of escape and sort of just numb out, and that creates a whole other issue. And I still enjoy some alcohol every now and then, but I've been able to really wean it back in a way that's now it's no longer a crutch, and it's not harmful for me physically. But, I was same thing. I was really ashamed to talk about it. And it was like, well, everyone drinks and everybody. So it's like, and I was, but I definitely had a lot of shame around it. And because of the work I was doing in nutrition, but it is interesting by just, picking up the phone and just saying, I just want to hear, how are you really doing? Like, what's really been going on? Yeah. I see XYZ going on. And I know we've texted a little bit, but like, what's really going on? And it could be like, everything's actually really good. And that's great. It's not like every person I call on the phone, I'm hoping that they tell me that they're, depressed or whatever. Of course not. But I think it's just that power of the human voice is something that a text just can't do. And, there's often these things too, where you get a text from someone and you're like, were they kind of just being mean or rude, or is it just because it's a text?
Right. Yeah, tone is really hard.
Play with yourself, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's something just about that, and we were talking earlier too about how, and sometimes it's hard with time zones. You and I are in different time zones, and kids, and it can be hard to connect with friends. Guilty. There are friends I have not talked to. I do try to prioritize, but there are good friends of mine who I have not talked to on the phone in a long, long time. So thank goodness for text for that reason, right? And Facebook, but now you can leave voice messages on Facebook Messenger or on your smartphone, and even doing that, or even like calling, if they don't answer, leave a voicemail. Right. Don't call, hang up, and then be like, "Hey, I tried to reach you," and I am guilty of this sometimes too. But I try to leave a voicemail and listen to it. If someone leaves you a voicemail, take a minute to listen to it. That drives me crazy. When I didn't hear your voicemail, did you listen to it? No. It's like, well, I left it for a reason.
Right.
Because I do, and maybe it is because we're actors and performers and that kind of thing, that we so believe in the human connection and having that emotional, visceral, verbal interaction with somebody. Maybe that's a part of it, and not everyone's like us, so that's fine. But the conversation we had on the phone would never have happened on a text. Now, maybe if we had texted, you would have picked up the phone and called me, or you would have said, "Hey, call me. I want to know more," and so that,
who knows? Yeah.
But still, it's pretty amazing. And I've had times where I've called someone and they've answered and they're in a really good mood. I'm like, what happened? And something good just happened. And it's really cool to be able to like be part of those celebratory moments in people's lives too.
Absolutely. That can be a gift for the caller, right? To find some surprising good news on the other end. That gives you something to feel good about too, and to celebrate. And it's, I think ultimately calling and connecting can be a great way to lift somebody up. And then it's okay to know that in doing that, you get something out of it too, right? I mean, both people win. I want to give a shout out to an old friend of mine named Jeffrey Schechter. We call him Shecky in the business. Like a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, I was walking to the bus. I forget what I was even doing. I was going into the city for something. My phone rang, and it was like 9:00 in the morning, and I saw his name, and I'm like, Shecky? I was so shocked that he was calling me out of nowhere. And he literally said, "Hey, how are you?" Nothing. I'm like, "I'm fine." He could still hear the "why are you calling me" sort of in my voice. And he answered it by saying, "Nothing's going on. I just was thinking about you, and I wanted to reach out and say hey," instead of, it was awesome. And it was, it was maybe a 6-minute conversation, but we truly connected, truly caught up with each other. We truly both benefited from it. And both of us, I'm sure he did too. We both had more joy in our day just from connecting with each other like that. It was awesome. So real quick before we end this in like 4 minutes, I want other people, I talked about this dark part of my story. The light part of my story is that I decided to jump in to Amare with you, and I became a wellness partner, and I tried some products, and I want people to know that my dark story is not my story anymore, thankfully. The products really made a huge difference for me. It's kind of astounding to me, actually, how much better I feel. Like, I honestly feel like I got my life back, that I had lost it. I did not recognize my life this past January and February. And now I feel resilient again. I can handle stress. I can handle whatever life throws at me. I'm an older parent of 2 young kids, and that's a challenge all the time. I have the resiliency there too that I had lost as well.
Yeah.
The thing is that Amare is the mental wellness company, and there's so many things coming from them down the pipeline. But right now, what they're doing, which I think is so time appropriate, is really helping people heal their gut and improving their gut health and the gut-brain connection. And I had no idea that a gut and that connection could be so compromised that it could lead to much of the stress, anxiety, depression, lack of the resiliency, the stomach and digestion issues I was having, the headaches I was having, the lack of sleep I was having, all the physical ailments I was having that were related to how my emotional state had crumbled. I had no idea that the gut could be compromised in such a way that it could play out in all those different ways in our body. And they play out in different ways for other people. Maybe they plateau on their weight loss, or they have, I don't know, maybe they're symptoms that
thyroid,
thyroid
conditions.
issues.
I've seen it showing up for people in so many really cool ways, that it is astounding. And that's like a whole other,
we could go many different directions there, right? But for me, the difference when I started healing my gut and improving that gut-brain connection was that it was taking me out of that deep depression that I was in. Like, it was giving me the boost I needed, right? Yeah. And then it was like the sun came back out for me. I started getting energy. I started getting motivation. I started having better memory. The brain fog started lifting. I started sleeping better. I felt more apt to take care of myself because my gut was healing and things started spiraling upward. That's what I like to say about it. Awesome. And because of all of that, and I started to like myself again, all of that stuff started adding up. Then I started to want to take care of myself better. And so then I was making better choices, and it was like layer upon layer, and really getting into the root cause of the issues for me by fixing my gut, which had been terribly compromised, made all the difference. So I'm so glad you called me that day. I'm so glad that you used the phone. I'm glad I picked up the phone, and I'm planning on, making a couple of calls, I think, after this, because there are people in my life that I think about and I don't do anything about it. I want to pick up the phone, give them a call, even if it's a voicemail, like you said, just say, hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. It might lighten somebody's day or bring some joy to somebody's life, or Absolutely. Who knows, they may be going through something, and they'll be comforted to know that there's somebody else on the line who cares.
Absolutely. And anyone watching this or the replay, pick up the phone and just have a quick conversation and call that person that you've been thinking about for a long time and haven't done it, and maybe even feeling guilty about it.
Yeah.
I know I'm like that sometimes. Oh, that person called me a couple weeks ago and I haven't called back. Do it. Call someone back.
Right.
Even if it's a call you're not really looking forward to, a good mental wellness thing is like not to procrastinate, like feel
That's
better.
right.
You feel better if you like do the things and you follow through on things. That
right.
can help too. So even if it's not like a happy call necessarily or like a fun call, it can be really good to just call someone back and move past it.
Absolutely.
I think we're out of time.
We are, Jen. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you.
To cut us off.
And
20-minute stop.
No, I'm glad that we could spend time together. Okay.
I love you. I love you, my friend. Thank you for sharing so openly.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too. Bye.